made limitless. That's life unlimited.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Spectrum News anchor Bree Driscoll here in the heart of Times Square, where we are ready to celebrate the new year. But before the ball drops, we are sharing the major moments of 2024 you saw right here on Spectrum News. The unforgettable stories that shaped our world at home, abroad, and the technology you use every day, those who entertained us and those we lost. Well, let's begin with the biggest story of them all, the twists and turns of the 2024 election. Here's Spectrum's Evan Kozlov.
As we enter 2024, we seem primed for a 2020 rematch between President Joe Biden and the man he succeeded, former President Donald Trump.
Come November, we will vote on record numbers.
We're going to put America first. We're going to make America great again.
But first, Trump needed to dispatch a crowded field of Republicans seeking the nomination.
Chaos follows him.
By March, he had just one opponent left, his former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley.
They call it Super Tuesday for a reason.
But after Trump had a decisive win on Super Tuesday, Nikki Haley called it quits. Meanwhile, the Democratic primary was more like a coronation, Biden facing no serious competition. But there were warning signs that Biden's age might become an issue. In February, Special Counsel Robert Hur recommended not bringing charges against Biden for retaining classified documents, saying a jury would likely see Biden as an elderly man with a poor memory.
My memory is fine.
Trump, meanwhile, had to leave the campaign trail in April for his trial in New York on charges of falsifying documents to cover up hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. In the end, he was convicted of 34 charges, the first time in history that a former U.S. president became a felon.
We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
But Trump soon scored a landmark victory before the Supreme Court when the conservative majority ruled that presidents enjoyed legal immunity for official acts.
It's Joe Biden.
Then came a major turning point in the campaign, Biden's disastrous performance in his first scheduled debate with Trump.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Biden's halting delivery and meandering responses alarmed Democrats, who began calling on him to leave the race.
I am running and going to win again.
For nearly a month, Biden remained defiant. But in late July, the pressure was too much. Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris.
The best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Also in July, this stunning moment.
Take a look at what happened.
Trump was nearly killed in an assassination attempt while speaking at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Remarkably, the bullet only grazed his right ear. 2 days later, wearing a bandage, Trump received a hero's welcome at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight.
Democrats, meanwhile, rallied around Kamala Harris at the Democratic Convention in Chicago, where she tried to quickly unify the party before a mad rush to Election Day.
I promise to be a president for all Americans.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
In September, Trump and Harris held their first and only debate.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. Eat the cat. Eat the cat.
A face-off memorable for Trump's baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio.
Hello, Michigan.
It's so good to be back in Arizona.
Both candidates focused their fall campaigns on 7 key swing states.
Wisconsin.
Nevada!
Pennsylvania. North Carolina.
Before it was up to voters on November 5th.
The 47th President of the United States.
On Election Day, Trump would win every single one of the swing states and became the first Republican presidential candidate in 2 decades to win the popular vote.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Republicans also won the majority in the Senate and barely kept control of the House, giving them a trifecta of power in the new year.
And after the election, Special Counsel Jack Smith decided to end both federal prosecutions of Trump because of Justice Department policy against charging presidents. Trump is now moving quickly to nominate loyalists to his cabinet, while President Biden prepares to leave office after a half-century on the public stage. Reporting here in Washington, I'm Evan Kozloff, Spectrum News.
While the U.S. election was the center of focus here at home, around the world, 2024 saw new conflict, civil war, and the collapse of a dictatorship after a decade of fighting. Plus, surprising announcements from Britain's royal family. Here's Spectrum's Daniel Grimes.
From destruction in the Middle East to fighting in Ukraine, international conflicts raged over the past year, but displaced people in Lebanon are returning home after the U.S. and France brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, raising hopes that perhaps a deal could be reached between Israel and Hamas.
We're going to keep pushing to accelerate a ceasefire deal that ensures Israel's security, but brings hostages home and ends the suffering of the Palestinian people and children.
Over the past year, Israel's war expanded to multiple fronts, with ground troops fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel and Iran exchanging missile attacks. President-elect Donald Trump has sought to shift the focus back to the remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza, writing on social media that if they are not released before he takes office, quote, those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. The nearly 15 months of war between Israel and Hamas has also decimated the hospital system in Gaza and left a humanitarian crisis in its wake.
Hospitals must be protected, both from use for military purposes and from attack by any party to the conflict.
But in nearby Syria, a surprise offensive by rebels ended nearly 14 years of civil war and the brutal 50-year dictatorship of the Assad family. The leading rebel group is considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. and other Western nations. Its leader vows to work on behalf of all Syrians and has no interest in terrorism, but the Biden administration is taking a wait-and-see approach.
The opposition groups, the leaders of many of these groups are saying the right things, as the president said, but we're looking for action, not just words.
One reason Syria's regime collapsed is that Russia could not come to its aid because of its nearly 3-year-old war against Ukraine. In November, Russia fired hundreds of drones and missiles into Ukraine, and Ukraine for the first time launched U.S.-made missiles deep into Russia. Russia's president raised the possibility of retaliating with nuclear weapons, although many analysts did not take that threat seriously. During the campaign, Trump said he could end the war in 24 hours. He did not say how, but in 2025, he'll get his chance to do so. As these conflicts consumed much of the world's focus, a humanitarian crisis grinds on seemingly under the radar. Sudan has been embroiled in a civil war since last year, displacing more than 11 million and plunging part of the nation into famine.
Women and girls, boys and men who are gender-based violence survivors in Sudan, you are not alone.
International affairs did not just involve conflicts this year. King Charles III and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, both announced cancer diagnoses. The king is still receiving treatment, but Kate announced in September that she was cancer-free. And she was also able to make a few public appearances this year, most recently hosting the Together at Christmas Carol service at Westminster Abbey. In Washington, Daniel Grimes, Spectrum News.
New artificial intelligence tools and the cybersecurity failure that impacted millions of us worldwide. Spectrum's Ariel Wessler takes a look at the year in technology.
No matter how you spin it, 2024 was all about artificial intelligence.
AI really got its tentacles into every part of our lives.
Leading the way, ChatGPT. The AI platform took off this year, bringing the medium to the masses, with roughly 200 million weekly active users worldwide. About 92% of Fortune 500 companies now use OpenAI products like ChatGPT. Samuel Burke is a technology journalist with Fortune magazine.
People are using it not just to improve their work at school, but really across all aspects of life, whether it's helping you write important emails, making images and really showing people how much their jobs could be on the line.
But 2024 also saw the downside of tech in what's widely considered the largest IT outage in history. CrowdStrike distributed a faulty security update, sending 8.5 million computer systems into chaos and disrupting not only airlines,
had our 2 flights canceled,
but businesses and governments around the world, costing an estimated $10 billion.
It really showed just how dependent we all are on technology, and there's no backup.
On the consumer side, Apple Intelligence hit the market with iPhone 16, although many of the AI features had long been available on Google and Samsung phones.
It was Apple saying, we're laying the foundation, but it's just not there yet. But Apple's mantra has always been, we don't have to be first, we just have to be best.
The company also put out its Vision Pro mixed reality headset back in February for a cool $3,500. And shortly after, Apple slashed production.
It's one of these technologies people say, you don't really know you need it until you use it, but then people used it and they really didn't need it.
But maybe they'll need more self-driving taxis? Waymo expanded into Los Angeles this year after previously opening citywide in San Francisco. And with 2 patients now implanted with Elon Musk's Neuralink chips to control devices with their mind, the future could very well be in your head. Looking to 2025, Burke believes one trend you'll see is more polarization as more social media platforms pop up with their own political spin. Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News.
More major moments of 2024 just ahead. The impact of increasing extreme weather, the climbing costs from hurricanes, tornadoes, fires, and floods.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Dinner time, off the internet. Devices in the basket, all of them.
Smartwatch. Connect as many devices as you want, and then some. With Spectrum, you get the fastest internet speeds and advanced Wi-Fi that can power all the devices in your home.
Okay. I have to take this.
Get fast and reliable connections. Get Spectrum.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
From snowstorms and severe weather to a devastating hurricane season, 2024 will be remembered as a busy year in the weather world. Spectrum News national meteorologist Nate Harrington takes a look back at the major weather events that made headlines.
The National Centers for Environmental Information estimates 24 separate weather events occurred in the U.S. in 2024 with damage of up to $1 billion, including 17 severe weather outbreaks, 4 tropical cyclone events, 1 wildfire, and 2 winter storms. The year started off with a widespread winter weather event that stretched from the northwest to the south and up the east coast. Areas in the Pacific Northwest to the Rockies endured snow, sleet, and ice, along with hurricane-force winds at times. The south had reports of lake-effect snow in Texas and half a foot of snowfall in Nashville. The storm then blanketed Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and New York City with their first snowfall of an inch or more in 700 days. This past year also featured almost a dozen severe weather events bringing damaging winds, large hail, heavy rainfall, and several tornado outbreaks. One of the states hit hardest by an uptick in tornadoes this year is Ohio. At least 73 confirmed tornadoes hit the Buckeye State in 2024. This is unfortunately a trend, as 2023 tallied the third most confirmed tornadoes with 60. We also saw this massive pineapple-sized hailstone in the panhandle of Texas. The 7-inch-long hailstone is most likely the largest in the state's history. Before the start of the 2024 hurricane season, forecasters predicted one of the busiest on record. While the extreme season wasn't realized, it was still an above-average season with 18 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes. Hurricane Beryl was an omen of things to come, as it became the earliest forming Category 5 on record and left widespread damage from the Caribbean into the U.S. Then, after a lull, the hurricane season turned devastating as Hurricane Helene left its mark on the southeast from Florida to the Carolinas. It was the deadliest storm to strike the mainland U.S. since Katrina in 2005. Helene brought record-breaking storm surge flooding to Tampa Bay, triggered tornado outbreaks, and caused catastrophic inland flooding in western North Carolina, East Tennessee, and western Virginia. So far, more than 200 people died as a result of Helene, with almost $90 billion in damage. Less than 2 weeks after Helene, Hurricane Milton struck the west coast of Florida, bringing deadly flooding and one of the worst tornado outbreaks in Florida's history. At its peak, Milton was the second strongest hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, right behind Rita in 2005, with winds of 180 miles per hour. Milton is blamed for the deaths of at least 30 people and for causing more than $85 billion in damage. The National Centers for Environmental Information says the 24 separate billion-dollar weather events this past year is just above the 5-year average, but almost triple the number since the centers began collecting data in 1980. As for the cause, the agency says the two overarching reasons for the increase in billion-dollar weather events, the increased population near vulnerable areas like the coast, river floodplains, and the urban wildland interface, and of course, the ever-changing climate. I'm meteorologist Nate Harrington, Spectrum News.
Just ahead right here, more major moments of 2024. Dueling blockbusters and female power. We spotlight the entertainment stories that made headlines.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms, available on the Spectrum News app.
When you know you can go anywhere because you have a connection that's built for everywhere. That's life unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
'Feeding America.org/actnow. 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 'Feeding America.org/actnow.
last 12 months have marked turbulent times in Hollywood, from celebrity scandals to seismic shifts in the entertainment industry. Spectrum's Alex Cohen has this year in review.
2024 kicked off with a massive awards rivalry between two blockbusters. Many hoped the success of Barbenheimer would mark a return to normal for Tinseltown in the wake of COVID and massive labor woes. Prior to late November, North American ticket sales this year were down 27% compared with pre-pandemic times. But there were some bright spots for film.
This is Joy, coming to you live in Riley's Mind.
Pixar's Inside Out 2 became the first animated movie to make more than $1 billion worldwide.
Just give me one more drink and then I'll leave. Hi, Peanut.
Deadpool and Wolverine was a close runner-up.
You're green.
I am. And the Thanksgiving mashup known as Glicked was a smash hit, popular for local theaters, and sparked an incredible outpouring of merch.
What kind of man wields power in a land like this?
Shogun was the show to watch on the small screen. The FX hit took home 18 Emmys for its 10-episode stretch. 2024 was also a year for shorter seasons of television, says journalist John Horn.
If you were a writer who used to work on, say, a network show like Grey's Anatomy, you'd be getting 20 to 24 episodes a year. A Netflix series, maybe it's 8, maybe it's 10 episodes.
But in 2024, less was not more when it comes to music, with two women dominating the industry.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
Taylor Swift's billion-dollar grossing Eras Tour ended this month in Vancouver, and Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter album helped her earn the title of Best Pop Star of the 21st Century from Billboard magazine. This year has also been marked by celebrity scandal. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez filed for divorce after 2 years of marriage. One of Lopez's exes, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, posted an apology video in May after footage of him savagely beating another former girlfriend went viral.
My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
4 months later, Combs was arrested on charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. His trial is set to begin in May of next year. Alex Cohen, Spectrum News.
From stage, screen, and sports, the world lost so many luminaries in 2024. Spectrum News anchor Robert Guadarrama remembers some of those we lost.
This year, we lost one of the best baseball players to ever step on the diamond. Willie Mays, the Say Hey kid, started his career in the Negro Leagues before playing for the Giants and Mets.
I just play the game as hard as I can, and that's it.
Breaking barriers with a legacy that will live on forever. From a star on the football field to murder defendant in the courtroom, O.J. Simpson passed away this year. The NFL player turned actor rose to international fame when charged with murdering his ex-wife and her friend. Simpson was acquitted, but later served jail time for other crimes. Matriarch of a political dynasty, the nation lost Ethel Kennedy this year. Wife of U.S. Senator Robert F. Kennedy and sister-in-law of President John F. Kennedy. She will be remembered as a human rights advocate, receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2014. Hollywood lost many bright stars in 2024, including Donald Sutherland with a career spanning 6 decades. He starred in dozens of films, including MASH and more recently The Hunger Games. Phil Donahue, media personality, writer, producer, and show host. His self-titled talk show gained him the most notoriety, being one of the first to feature audience participation.
Well, thank you. I am flattered. You may be seated.
Two-time Oscar winner Maggie Smith shined on stage and screen, perhaps best known for her roles in Downton Abbey and the Harry Potter franchise. Bob Newhart will be making people laugh forever. The comedian turned actor will be remembered for his deadpan delivery and his 2 classic TV sitcoms. Richard Simmons' personality will be unforgettable. The quirky fitness instructor grew a massive following through his aerobics videos and eventually landed his own TV show.
I wanted to do something new. I built a shopping mall inside of a Hollywood studio.
I am your father.
A voice recognized around the globe, James Earl Jones. The actor, best known for Star Wars, The Lion King, and Coming to America, was a pioneer for black actors in Hollywood.
And all that jazz.
Her stamp on the stage, undeniable. Chita Rivera became a Broadway star and trailblazer when she played Anita in West Side Story. She would go on to be a leading lady for decades. In the music world, 31-year-old pop group One Direction alum Liam Payne died after falling from a hotel balcony. He was mourned by shocked fans around the globe, remembering his talent of songwriting.
I ain't as good as I once was.
Country music fans said farewell to an icon, Toby Keith. The musician, known for his country anthems, will also be remembered for his support of the armed forces. And a legend by every sense of the word. Musician, producer, activist, record company executive Quincy Jones. With 28 Grammys, Jones was behind songs like We Are the World.
When you do what you love, it's not work.
And produced numerous Michael Jackson hits like Thriller and Rock With You. Just some of the greats we said goodbye to in 2024. In memoriam, for Spectrum News, I'm Robert Guadarrama.
So many greats gone. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our look back at the major moments of 2024. I'm Bree Driscoll in Times Square, and from all of us at Spectrum News, we want to wish you a happy and healthy new year.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices.
At Spectrum Enterprise, we give over 80% of the Fortune 500 the technology solutions they need to meet their growing business demands. Whether it's ultra-fast connectivity, seamless transactions, safe and secure data, or reliable always-on technology. These businesses demand better, and we're here to deliver it. Get a network you can rely on with our 100% uptime SLA guarantee.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
Here's the deal. Following the election, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Polarization. It was the 2024 Merriam-Webster Word of the Year. It's defined as division into two sharply distinct opposites, and that's what 80% of U.S. adults believe, that we are polarized about the values we hold most dear. This concept of division may be one of the few things that most of us actually agree on. But some folks believe that we share more common ground than we think. On this Spectrum News 1 special, we explore political polarization and the groundwork to come together and move forward. This is Bridging Our Divides, Politics. Welcome to Bridging Our Divides Politics. I'm Armit Singh, coming to you from the Air Force One Pavilion at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum in Simi Valley, California, home to the Ronald Reagan Center on Civility and Democracy, where Americans can disagree without villainizing each other and find common ground and develop trust for our democratic institutions.
There are record levels of distrust of Americans, of fellow Americans. There are fears about where the democracy is going forward. So we thought at the Reagan Foundation Institute that we could help by creating this Center on Civility and Democracy. And the idea is to kind of model Ronald Reagan's example, where he was a conservative Republican, but he was able to get things done with liberal Democrats because he found ways to find common ground.
Now, more than ever, we'll need to depend on one another to achieve our goals for this country.
We become isolated into these tribes, and we feel because somebody has an idea that we think is bad, that they must be a bad person.
Out of all of my family who were all traditionally Republicans, I was the only Democrat my entire life. So we would have these conversations with one another, and then I found myself being the intolerant one. It took some really deep soul searching on my part to realize that the other side isn't what we portray them to be, and vice versa. They're my family, and I know they're good people, so how can I listen to my echo chamber telling me that they're bad people because my experience is different?
One thing we've worked on doing with the Center on Civility and Democracy is bringing together people with opposite political views and let them go ahead and lay out where the differences are. And then once they get past that, then you start talking about where their common interests are and how they can jointly work together to advance those. President Reagan had a great saying. He would say, if there's something that's important to you, get 80% of it. Let the other side have a bit of a win, and then come back next time to try to get the rest. We find ourselves in a game where it's 100% or nothing. We have to move back to governing in a style where both sides can win. Let both sides go back with the ability to claim victory and to bring something back. And that's what President Reagan represented, and that, I think, is what will be very important and help the country move forward and engaging all Americans in the process.
For all this division we see these days, there are many folks that have had enough of the disharmony. Braver Angels is a nationwide bridge building group that gives people the tools and the opportunities to interact with each other
in a multi-dimensional way. We visited a pizza and beer event just days after the presidential election where folks on both sides shared their perspectives on the election and the future of our country.
Brave Angels started right after the 2016 election, and there was a small group of people who got together, 8 Clinton voters, Hillary Clinton voters, and 8 Trump voters, and brought them together for a weekend workshop to foster good dialogue and get people to really get to know each other. Deep friendships were formed across the divide, and they said, we need to take this across the country.
I think that what Braver Angels has done for me, it's given me tools that I can use in different situations to create a psychologically safe space so I can have really great, meaningful, truth-based conversations with people.
There's some skills that we like to teach people about being curious about the other person. And so the questions on the sheet are just a kind of a guide to help people through that process. For instance, about the election, our question on the sheet about the election is, how are you feeling about the results of the election? Are you feeling more angry or sad or anxious? You know, how does it make you feel?
Earlier tonight, I met Sandra over here. You know, like this election, I'm leaning much more conservative. You know, so I voted for Trump. She's very, very liberal. Voted for Harris. You know, like if we came together, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that we have these differences. But we very openly communicated these differences, why we have them, and we agreed. You know what? At the end of the day, you know, we're lucky that we live here in the United States of America, and we can all do something better to serve others, to make our nation better.
Some of the workshop materials break it down why red-leaning folks believe what they do and what that translates into, like the values behind those beliefs. And they do the same for the more blue-leaning folks, like what they believe and why and what the values are behind those beliefs. And you know what?
And we went to
the values are
that were hosted
very similar. So, and that was very enlightening.
We don't call ourselves nonpartisan, we call ourselves cross-partisan. And I love that term because it just means that, you know, we run the gambit from the far left to the far right and everything in between. Everybody is welcome.
This feels like legacy work that I am stubbornly determined to leave the world better than I found it.
Joining me now is Dr. Tanya Israel. She's a professor of counseling psychology at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and also an award-winning author of 2 books about living in a politically divided nation and what we need to get beyond that divide. Dr. Tanya, it's a beautiful and fitting place when we think about the Ronald Reagan Library, especially because in the time since Reagan, I mean, there's this Gallup poll that shows, particularly in the last 30 years, we've become more divided, maybe a brief moment of exception after 9/11. What's driving this divide?
Well, it's first helpful to understand what kind of division we're talking about, because when people talk about polarization, we sometimes think we're talking only about how far apart our opinions are. And it turns out that that has increased a little bit over time, but what is really corrosive right now is what we call affective polarization, and that's the animosity and the mistrust that people feel toward people on the other side of the political spectrum, and that's really increased considerably over the last few years.
It's so interesting. It feels like we can feel that, and we see that portrayed in media portrayals. We see that on social media, and I do feel like perhaps media and social media, it's a chicken or egg a bit. It's reflecting, but to some degree causing?
Absolutely. Well, with the 24-hour news channels, they also need to keep us engaged, and the way they do that is through emotionally activating material, because that's what keeps people tuned in. So that both sort of draws us to it, but it also then, you know, the media is responding to what the consumers are interested in.
And there's this Johns Hopkins survey that shows of the electorate, half thinks people of the other party are essentially an existential threat. And another quarter or so have severed relationships based on political opinion. What happened psychologically to get us to this place?
Well, I'm going to start a few years back. When humans were evolving, we lived in small groups of people or tribes. And in those tribes, we couldn't survive on our own because of the harsh environment. But in those tribes, we were protecting ourselves and our people not only from saber-toothed tigers, but also from the other tribes who were in competition with us for scarce resources. So they really were an existential threat to us. And we are taking those old brains and overlaying them onto the current political and social situation, such that we see other people not only as holding different opinions than we do, but actually being part of these competing tribes who are a threat. We are largely overestimating how violent the other side is, how extreme they are, and also what they think of us, how much animosity they have toward us, how much they dehumanize us. So these cognitive biases are really shaping how we're perceiving this political landscape.
We'll be right back with more on Bridging Our Divides, Politics.
Our daily decisions can have a massive impact on the quality of our lives. From the foods we eat to the places we live and everything in between, our health can send us on a quest for answers. Join me as we break down the science and politics behind some of the most important topics affecting our communities and learn what we can do about them.
Watch Exploring Your Health on the Spectrum News app. Available on all of your favorite devices.
Hey, pal. Ready for bed?
Hey, Dad. Do we really have the fastest internet speeds?
Yeah, with Spectrum, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. Can I use that to research volcanoes super fast?
Of course.
Can you learn to make a diorama super fast?
Yeah, you can do that too.
How fast exactly?
The absolute fast. When's your project due?
Tomorrow morning.
How much have you done? Okay. I'll get the glue.
The fastest internet whenever you need it. From Spectrum.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
If we're looking to bridge our divides, the classroom is a good place to start. Research shows that individual civic identities develop during adolescence. Taylor Torregano visited a preparatory school in the heart of a purple district in Carlsbad, California. It's a place where students and staff don't avoid, but rather encourage difficult discussions, and where civic empathy is taught to be fundamental.
At Pacific Ridge School, the classroom takes many forms. In what's called their purpose period, students are using this time to discuss the top issues that drove this election cycle.
I feel like foreign policy
This is also like tariffs.
comes first because policies are what really set the regulations.
18-year-old Chloe Kim says she wants to major in philosophy, politics, and law, and enjoys learning about current events to stay engaged with the world around her. That ethical responsibility is part of the curriculum here, which is why Rohan Vadnis is part of a club on campus called Model UN that takes him across the country, developing a passion for international affairs at just 17 years old.
We basically go and we debate international topics. So we had people talking about
about broadband access in Africa. There's like a large range of topics.
But perhaps just as important as the topics is the empathy the students are also learning to incorporate as they discuss differing views, says English teacher Michael Fisher. They use the Harkness method, where students leading the discussion are called facilitators, and other roles are established like questioner, contributor, and observer for each participant in the dialogue.
Listening, respecting people with different views, and just showing that we're capable of reaching across differences. We have a strong reaction to what someone else says. Maybe we sit with that, find an opportunity to ask a question, and try to really engage in this civil, respectful way.
Equity and Civic Engagement Coordinator Spencer Burrows says this creates a respectful space for students to engage with the civic process in a healthy way as they develop into the leaders of tomorrow.
One thing that we hear repeatedly from college administrators and beyond is that students are entering college with a very weak understanding of how the civic process works. So I want all of our students to have that foundational knowledge of how to be an engaged citizen, and then also provide them opportunities to do that work.
It's why Chloe says she feels prepared for college with an internship at a city council member's office already under her belt. But as she visualizes the future she wants to live in, she says leaning across the aisle is non-negotiable.
A democracy, by definition, is a system where everyone's voices matter, like where everyone can have a say. And so I think empathy is always going to be the underlying key.
The key to moving forward on common ground.
The mission to foster civil discourse goes beyond individual classrooms. Experts hope that ultimately all teachers, no matter their subjects or expertise, are able to stimulate the sort of critical thinking that empowers young people to participate responsibly in civic life. Vanya Bettino takes us to California State University, Fullerton, where future teachers are learning how to engage these students in authentic, productive, and meaningful civic discourse.
It's a tool you're going to take with you, a process.
In this class, the teachers are the students.
What was the last time you had a disagreement with somebody over a public or civic issue?
At Cal State Fullerton, Professor William Toledo is preparing teachers to facilitate what can be controversial political conversations in the classroom.
To get students involved in politics with low-level, non-controversial issues so that we don't get into these spaces where, as adults, we don't talk about politics. Because if we're not talking about it, we get into those echo chambers and we get even more divided, right? Which we're seeing right now.
High school teacher Naomi Chia says long gone are the days when politics were not brought up.
Social media is now involved, and kids kind of have an idea of where people stand, but they still don't want to address it. So I think that's something that we need to teach students.
And to teach their students, they have to learn first.
Remember, that's hard yes, hard no.
Which is why Professor Toledo puts them through the same scenario they can later practice with their students.
We have people pretty close to the hard no side.
In this case, they debated over vending machine food options.
Being able to choose, like, hey, I want hot Cheetos today, or like, hey, I do want to eat healthy today, should be their choice.
And snacks should always be accessible, especially when you might only have a few.
It may not seem too controversial, but Professor Toledo says that is also the point.
So it's super important that we start with lower level, less controversial issues, just to build the capacity to talk across disagreement, to talk about public and civic issues.
He says classrooms are the perfect place to start. And Naomi agrees.
To be considerate of the perspectives.
Believing teachers are playing an important role in stopping the polarization the country is seeing.
Teachers have the job to teach students how to be able to engage in civic discussions, and rather than pulling away from each other on the spectrum, and kind of come closer together and meet in the middle.
Saying it is less about where they stand, but more about having the ability to explain why.
Also placing an emphasis on fact. That's also our goal as educators, to make sure that students know how to fact check, they're using credible sources.
All part of the toolbox helping teachers and students navigate civic discourse.
That lets them start to be like, oh wow, I can say and talk about things with people I disagree with.
With the goal of moving towards a more connected society.
Bridging Our Divides Politics returns after the break.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Everyone deserves to live a full life. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
It's on Friday. I'll be on the field. You're gonna be there?
Is that the football guy?
Can you give me a minute? Thanks.
So, do you have any plans on Saturday? Because, I was thinking yourself.
Is that the guy?
Dad.
Yeah, it's the guy.
Oh, I found Mr. Squishy.
Louder.
Here, there, everywhere. Reliable internet where you need it most. With Spectrum.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is the Bible's golden rule and the premise of what a church calls a movement for kindness. Sherilyn Wagner shows us how one religious group is using scripture to come together for a message that's larger than our divisions.
Abby Barber regularly stands before the congregation at Valencia United Methodist Church as part of the youth choir. But taking the podium on a Sunday in October was a special occasion.
I think it's banging that I get to preach for you all today.
Abby delivered a youth sermon as part of a 5-week Do Unto Others campaign leading up to the election. As the presidential race ramped up, even this 11-year-old could tell the grown-ups were tense.
They were serious face and they looked mad. I don't know why.
In a way, the congregation's campaign was counter-programming to the political one. Terry Comp is one of the lay leaders, along with Abby's dad, Mike. They first heard about the Do Unto Others movement during a leadership trip to Church of the Resurrection in Leawood, Kansas. They knew right away they wanted to bring it home to Santa Clarita.
When you get in the mindset of the election, you're thinking more about how you're different than how you're alike. And we wanted to really just remind ourselves that we really do have a lot in common.
An important message during a divisive time. Andy Maddock is the co-lead pastor of VUMC, and he worries about just how deep the divide has grown, even within families.
There's such a sharp, deep division of opinion, process, and position that people are outright hostile to one another.
He immediately embraced the idea of the campaign and the logo, which he says spells out the main point perfectly.
With the Republican red and the Democrat blue, the larger part of who we are is a purple people who come together and that we're better together.
The 5-week worship series reflected on key themes like kindness, humility, and compassion. The signs were everywhere, outside, inside, on stickers and t-shirts, reminding people that doing unto others doesn't come with caveats.
No matter who we vote for, we can know what our heart is, and that's how we see others, how we treat others, to treat others the way we want to be treated.
So that it doesn't end. Right. The focused series may have ended with election season, but Terry says the need to find common ground continues.
It's everything. It really is. It's kind of what it's all about.
She loves that some of the signs remain around the church and the town. Abby likes seeing them too, but she doesn't need them. She knows the lesson by heart.
It doesn't matter who you are, you always have to be kind.
A philosophy that's near and dear to her heart.
Joining me now is Dr. Tanya Israel. So Dr. Israel, as we continue this conversation, talk about some of the other tools at our disposal to engage in what we're calling civil discourse.
One of the most important things that we can do is go in with an intent to really try to understand the other person. So whether we're trying to maintain a relationship, or we're trying to convince somebody, or find common ground, or even just gain some insight into how somebody else can see things, the best thing that we can do is to create a warm and trusting connection where we're really trying to lead with curiosity. Listening is key. Listening not so that we can form our best argument against somebody, but really listening to understand, where we're giving somebody uninterrupted time to speak and then sharing back with them what we heard from them rather than jumping right in with our own views. And then really asking them to elaborate not on, like, where did you get that information, but to elaborate on the meaning something has for them or the experiences they've had that have shaped their views. Of course, we want to find a way to share where we're coming from too. And when we do that, the best way to do it is by sharing stories rather than stats or slogans.
So trying to understand, really listening, reflecting back what you think you're hearing, having people elaborate, and then being better at storytelling.
That was the most beautiful reflection. That was perfect.
I'm just trying to engage in exactly what you're giving, Dr. Tanya Israel. What is it that keeps you optimistic about where we're going with our state of civil discourse?
You know, the funny thing is, the longer I do this work, the more optimistic I am. And that's because there's a whole bridging movement in this country of over 500 organizations that are strengthening our social cohesion and our democracy. And seeing what all of these groups are doing is making me feel so much faith in the future of our country and so much goodwill toward my fellow Americans. And that's really what's keeping me optimistic.
As we've seen today, political polarization not only threatens our health and relationships, but the fabric of our democracy. We may feel powerless amidst what seems like insurmountable division, but the truth is that we share more, are more connected to each other than we think. We have to want it, but if we do, the desire to bridge our divides will be what brings us together and moves our country forward. I'm Ramit Singh. Thanks for watching.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation. Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
You put in unlimited hours and unlimited passion because your small business has unlimited potential. Spectrum Business is built to connect you with that potential. With Spectrum One for Business, you get fast, reliable internet, advanced Wi-Fi, and a mobile line, all for only $49.99 per month. That's more connectivity at a better price than other providers. And with Spectrum One for Business, the value only grows. With award-winning multi-layered security to defend all your devices. If it's connected, it's protected. Get all the connectivity your business needs for the lowest price around. Only $49.99 per month. That's your business made limitless. That's life unlimited.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Coming up on A View from the Mountains.
I'm shouting to anyone who will listen that what we're facing in Western North Carolina is a Katrina-type situation.
We spent a week in the mountains catching up with people we met here 4 years ago.
When you look around, I mean, this would be 28 feet of water above us right now. I mean, places that never flooded did.
To see how they survived Helene.
I'm numb. I'm just numb.
And how their communities will try to recover and rebuild.
I don't even know what to say. Is that a train that destroyed your brewery?
Devastated by flooding, but a mountain spirit keeping their future afloat.
It makes me want to do more for my community.
Welcome to A View from the Mountains. I'm Tim Boyum. If you watch Front Porch Politics, you know it's about everyday North Carolinians and the communities that they love. What you may not know is it started with A View from the Mountains 4 years ago. That's right, this is where it all started. So 4 years later, after the destruction from Helene, we wanted to come back and reunite with the 5 people that we met to see how they are doing and how their communities are doing. We start just a few ridges over.
Before we crossed that ridge, in the weeks after the storm, as the water receded, the weather was stunning. 70 degrees and clear skies.
I think Mother Nature's apologizing to us. She was so mean to us that I think this last 3 weeks has almost been an apology for being so mean to us.
But it doesn't take long to realize something's different. The peaceful sound of water in fall leaf season, drowned out by the sounds of machines moving debris. We were also struck by the wide array of emotions, some seemingly still in shock.
The weirdest thing about this whole stressful situation is I haven't even cried.
While others are constantly holding back tears.
Yeah.
A region full of contradictions at the moment, beauty in one direction, destruction in another. An uncertain future, yet certainty a future can exist, if they just stick together.
Good to see you, man.
How you doing?
Good.
Larry Smith, a lifelong Avery County man trying to comprehend a life-changing storm.
The landscape of Western North Carolina has been changed forever in my lifetime.
The river here separates the road from his Christmas tree crop. It took 7 days to reach it.
That's a truck that was here?
Yeah, they were lodged all against, there was debris over our head here. Trees, vehicles, campers. You couldn't even see the bridge. We didn't even know if it was actually still sitting on the foundations or not. There's just so much debris.
That had been just wild to see.
The crushed campers and mangled trucks came from a campground not far upstream. Larry mourns the lives lost there, but he knows he has a job at hand. His crop survived, and there's a job to be done. It's go time for Christmas tree farmers.
It'd be the most challenging harvest that I've ever been part of. Just trying to get the roads in shape to where we can get the stuff out, but that's what we do as farmers. We just make sure that the job gets done and go on to the next day.
We first met Larry back in 2020.
Fraser First considered the Cadillac of Christmas trees.
One of Larry's trees was the official White House tree in 2018.
When the president walked into the room, there was a gasp.
Larry's a legend in these parts, but it's his unfiltered authenticity that draws you in, down to sharing even the most embarrassing moments from the White House and his grandson.
Right literally inside the front door where the hallway goes from the east room to the west room, he threw up red Gatorade in chunks right on the floor. My son didn't know whether to stuff it back down his throat, let it go on the floor, and it's like the Beverly Hillbillies has made it to the White House.
Since that visit, we've met up with Larry countless times. His roots go deeper than these Christmas trees, 6 generations back, and he's so deeply connected. He's helping us navigate a tough time here in Avery County. Our recent visit came in late October during early voting. Larry introduced us to Dawn Avery.
We were very blessed because we didn't lose our life. We lost everything we had.
You heard that right. She lost everything, and it happened right before her eyes.
Finally, we left, and we went up to the highway, and we sat in our truck, and we had sump pumps in our basement, and it was pumping it out until it just couldn't do anymore.
4 feet of water and mud filled their home of 38 years. Tractors and trucks from the farm floated right by them.
What was that like to watch? Your life literally float by.
Well, first of all, you're kind of just in shock, and you kind of think, surely it will stop. And then, at that point when we realized it was too far gone, you cry and I bet we didn't speak 20 words.
Yet here she was, a few weeks later, without a home, casting her ballot.
It's a given right. And why people won't go vote is beyond me. So people can complain and say, Hoover's not doing their job, but if you don't have you have a right to vote, that's your voice. So, yeah, we're going to vote and get on with life, and it is what it is at this point.
Minutes later, John Noche pulled up, an elections field specialist for the state board. He helps county boards with small staffs in the western part of the state.
Friday, we lost power. Saturday, we lost water. And the state board's trying to call me to check on my counties.
With little gas in his car, he literally took drastic steps to get to work.
And so I walked there to the office. That was about 4 miles, and then I walked home. Because remember, I didn't stop for gas on Thursday. So I was like...
4 miles to go to work.
Yeah, well, I'm training for a marathon, full disclosure. So I was like, if I can't walk 4 miles, I got no business doing the marathon.
But that was nothing compared to some colleagues.
I've got one director in this region that lost everything. And the fact that he... could put that aside, compartmentalize, and be able to, find alternate sites, find another way of going about this was just, it was so admirable and inspiring, honestly. I don't know how he did it.
It would take a week to finally reach Yancey County officials. The gravity of the moment catching up to him during our chat.
It was the well-being of the people. It was trying to juggle, how do I survive? And help them at the same time.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back to A View from the Mountains, we continue this story. Then we head to Old Fort, to an old friend seeing devastation for the first time.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Dinner time, off the internet. Devices in the basket, all of them.
Smartwatch. Connect as many devices as you want, and then some. With Spectrum, you get the fastest internet speeds and advanced Wi-Fi that can power all the devices in your home.
Okay.
I have to take this. Get fast and reliable connections. Get Spectrum.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Welcome back to A View from the Mountains. I'm Tim Boyum. We continue in the Newland area, where they have faced intense destruction both physically and emotionally. But it's also the home of Christmas trees here in North Carolina, and the spirit remains strong.
It's been interesting.
In Avery County, 14 polling sites were impacted. Deputy Director Joseph Trevette helped deliver supplies while trying to figure out how to conduct elections.
Some of our polling sites actually doubled as a shelter, some of them did, or a distribution center. So going through and, having to go through road close signs to get to them at that time, that was, couldn't help be in your mind, what are we going to do? Like I said, we had a great team, we had a great meeting, and it all just worked out.
It worked out all right. Statewide turnout was 73.1%. Avery County was 73.7%. Buncombe County, home to Asheville, saw nearly 74%. And Yancey County's turnout nearly hit 78%.
My grandma always told me the importance of voting, and now being a part of this job, helping people vote, it makes it more special.
Larry Smith had one more pit stop on the agenda, Sam Cartner's Christmas Tree Farm. But it's not just any farm. It's home to this year's White House Christmas tree, picked just weeks after the storm. A massive honor, but it comes with a fog hanging over the region. Sam's farm lost some 5,000 trees to landslides, something that never happened before. Concerns remain about closed roads and getting these trees to market.
I think the Department of Transportation has done a really good job getting the main thoroughfares recovered, but there'll still be places that you won't be able to get a tractor and trailer in, and people might have to haul out with wagons, which will take a lot longer. They'll have to take detours, which will add mileage and cost, so it will impact a lot of people.
Back on Larry Smith's farm, despite the destruction, he's feeling the Christmas spirit.
For some reason, I guess farmers are always optimistic. I almost look for it to might be a record-breaking year for us because of I think people see what devastation's happened here in the mountains. That's a way, you know, buying a real Christmas tree and, you know, making a memory with your family, but it's also supporting the economy.
They're counting on everyone in North Carolina. Keep them in mind when picking out that perfect tree.
Fraser fir is by far the best Christmas tree that there is. I mean, we were blessed to have it here in North Carolina, sort of being native on Mount Mitchell and Rome Mountain and Grandfather Mountain. You know, it's the only place in the world that they grew naturally, so that's really been a godsend.
A little mountain spirit and hope in a season when despair sadly fills the air as well.
We got to take another break. When we come back, we head down to Old Fort with an old friend where he's going to see some devastation for the very first time.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms, available on the Spectrum News app.
When you know you can go anywhere because you have a connection that's built for everywhere. That's life unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Back to A View from the Mountains. I'm Tim Boyum. We now head to Old Fort, where they've had devastating damage. We're going to meet with an old friend, a mayor there, who's going to see some of this destruction for the very first time.
I'm numb. I'm just numb.
Marion Mayor Steve Little is not the mayor of Old Fort, but this tiny town holds a big place in his heart.
Oh, this area we're going to is very important to me.
A half-century of research along these historic rails.
Asheville was nothing but a pig path until the railroad got there.
But Olean's destruction might wash away history and prevent Mayor Little from the justice he seeks.
They died working. When they died working, they were buried beside the track.
10 miles separate Marion and Old Fort on I-40.
You've been mayor for 15 years.
15 years.
Have you had to deal with anything even remotely close to this?
Nothing remotely like this.
If you know Steve Little, you know he deeply cares for the mountains and its people. We were barely on the highway when things got emotional.
This was a mom and 3 small children. They live in Old Fort. They were in a mobile home, in a small mobile home park in downtown Old Fort.
As the floodwaters quickly rose, they escaped to a Hardee's in Old Fort, but then had to be rescued by a boat from there. As they entered the boat, they saw their life float by.
They saw their mobile home get pushed off. And float down the street in front of them. That was their home. Everything they owned.
As we pull off the highway into Old Fort, the dirt and dust covers the road and fills the air, oddly reminiscent of the earliest days in Old Fort.
This was the spot where the Piedmont meets the mountains. And this is the spot where the Western North Carolina Railroad Mountain Division started right here at Old Fort to climb up the Blue Ridge Escarpment to take the train into the rest of the mountains and therefore the rest of North Carolina.
Our first stop, a two-story yellow house Mayor Little knows well.
What is that?
It's desolation is what it is.
The Mountain Gateway Museum offices, where his journey to history began, a journey that started a half-century ago.
I'm going back to that Swananoa Tunnel.
3,000 convicts, yeah.
That's my home.
And a large majority of them were former slaves.
Probably 98% were former slaves.
We first met Mayor Little in late 2020. A story about his quest for justice for convicts forced to help build the Western North Carolina Railroad under grueling conditions in the late 1800s. At least 135 died.
Those who were old enough to remember probably would have thought slavery was terrible, but this is worse.
He's helped build memorials.
I keep thinking, I think I see him starting to sit.
And he was there as human remains detection dogs sniff for potential remains.
Those convicts, those men, those humans were just tossed in a hole. These convicts were not acknowledged. They were not appreciated. They were treated like tools. But we're changing that today.
But today, he's heard that sacred ground might have been washed away by Helene. It's where we are headed next.
Asheville Junction, Swananoa Tunnel.
So where are we going now?
We're going now to Mill Creek Road, which leads to Andrews Geyser.
Mayor Little's seen pictures of railroad tracks washed out where the former slaves and convicts were tossed into those holes.
This is about 4 times wider than it was before the hurricane.
But as we approached, Mayor Little realized damaged roads would prevent us from getting there.
Oh my gosh.
But then, something caught my eye. Down a steep embankment. Look. Something that's hard to describe in words.
I cannot even imagine what I'm looking at.
Railroad tracks looking more like a twisted roller coaster ride.
I'm numb. I'm just numb.
Rails suspended in the air as the earth underneath simply washed away.
You've seen images like this further down where the convicts did build.
Yes.
Which means that there's a possibility that remains were washed away from these convicts that helped build this area.
It is possible. So many places along this railroad is a graveyard because convicts who died in the process of working for whatever reason, whether it was a cave-in, an errant sledgehammer, maybe an intentional sledgehammer. When they died working, they were buried beside the track in spots that were just, they dug a hole, put the body in, covered it up, maybe paused for 15 seconds, and then the guard boss man would have said back to work.
Marking the importance of Steve Little's research to preserve the memory, even if remains were indeed washed away.
This was not harmed at all. No floods, no wind is going to harm that one.
Our day fittingly ended by this boulder.
That's Swananoa Tunnel.
A memorial to honor 19 convicts who died at a cave-in inside the Swananoa Tunnel in 1879. Mayor Little had one last story about a woman he met when the governor toured nearby damage. The woman simply asked if he wanted to talk, recognizing the pain in his eyes.
I thought, okay. She's asked, she seems genuine. So I began to talk with her about things I'd heard, things I'd seen that were just gripping and unsettling and made me want to throw up. And as I was telling her, I broke down and started to cry. And she came over And she gave me a great big bear hug, and she held me firmly for 30 seconds. And it felt good. That felt calming. That felt reassuring.
He didn't know until later, but that woman was the head of FEMA.
Feeling her level of concern and compassion gave me a tremendously good feeling that someone with that level of interest and concern over one person in a small town in the mountains of North Carolina, if that's who's in charge of FEMA, that's great.
Amidst the angst and accusations against FEMA, a moment of humanity Steve Little will forever remember.
We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we head into Asheville, Beer City, USA, facing some troubled times.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices.
At Spectrum Enterprise, we give over 80% of the Fortune 500 the technology solutions they need to meet their growing business demands. Whether it's ultra-fast connectivity, seamless transactions, safe and secure data, or reliable always-on technology, these businesses demand better, and we're here to deliver it. Get a network you can rely on with our 100% uptime SLA guarantee.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Here's the deal. Following the election, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Welcome back to A View from the Mountains. I'm Tim Boyum. We head into Asheville now, Beer City, USA. It's a huge part of the tourism there too. But with the destruction from Helene, there's a lot of question about the future of this all-important industry. The pristine water of our precious mountains help brew Asheville's beer industry.
They came for the water, the big guys like Sierra and New Belgium and White Labs.
But that same water now putting the industry in peril thanks to Helene.
Well, I mean, not everybody is going to make it, so there's some hard truths with that.
Some dreams literally crushed. I don't even know what to say. Is that a train that destroyed your brewery?
Yeah, there's a train car on our bar top.
Despite the destruction, they are somehow thankful and hopeful.
It's a town of service industry workers or people who were once service industry workers. And those people take care of each other. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
It's weeks now after the hurricane, and people are still filling up at Highland Brewing. Not for beer, but water.
My first day back, I got through and you had to check in with a guy down at the end of the driveway.
Chelsea Carmichael helped organize Highland's supply drive that overtook their property that was largely unharmed by the storm.
Hey, I'm Leah Ashburn, President and CEO of Highland Brewing Company here in Asheville, North Carolina. Our community is suffering, and we cannot brew beer, but we can ship beer.
The Highland team documented the efforts on social media.
So I'm here in our packaging hall, and behind me you can see some of the supplies that have come in. These are all actually Highway Patrol relief supplies.
It helped them to help others, but the weight of it is settling in.
So it was kind of hearing the same things. Like, it's just people like from, oh, I lost all of my food in my fridge, to I literally don't have a house. Like, I need everything. And it's so like, I'm gonna like get emotional.
We started getting requests because everybody knows, lots of people know that we have a big building.
We stopped at Highland because it was here we met Leah Ashburn and her dad 4 years ago.
We're in the alley.
where we started our business.
Oscar Wong's known as the godfather of Asheville craft beer, opening up in 1994, eventually sitting side by side with the big boys that moved into town.
I was terrified. I thought, oh no, it's bad enough to have the ankle biters, but to have the 500-pound gorilla show up, said, what are we going to do? Well, the upshot of it is that we had to up our game or get run over.
Today, his daughter leads the brewery. Despite very little damage, Helene will hurt their bottom line big time.
It hurt our business a lot. So October in Asheville, leaf peeping season, and it is everybody's biggest month. We lost every private event that we do. So some corporate business, lots of weddings, parties, just all of the things, all of the tourism that comes to Asheville in the fall. So that's still really painful, and we have not brewed yet.
Brewing has since started, but challenges remain. Still, it's nothing compared to what some other breweries are facing. Brian Fetting's literally picking up the pieces.
So what makes you come back and keep looking for this stuff then?
I mean, you go to work every day.
New Origin Brewery sits right along the Swannanoa River. We are sitting on the literal and figurative foundation of the brewery. They prepped for flooding with sandbags, knowing 15 feet was likely.
We thought we'd still have a building, but we would have a lot of water. But when my stomach really sank was definitely that morning, realizing that those projections, even those weren't going to hold. It was, we're talking 27 plus feet.
Anxiety and curiosity took over. He had to find out what happened.
I came on Saturday night, and it was probably 10 o'clock. It was really dark, so I just had a flashlight. But it was a war zone. I mean, there was active fires over here. There was just the constant hiss of punctured propane tanks. I was down here with the flashlight and looking around. What I didn't realize was that there was, a lot of fatalities in the area. And in this immediate vicinity, there was 12 bodies recovered.
So what did you think when you first saw this? I don't even know what to say. Is that a train that destroyed your brewery?
Yeah, there's a train car on our bar top.
A propane tanker bellied up to the bar, still intact.
So our front door was right here, and then this is where everyone would come in.
Here's what the brewery looked like before, and here's what it looks like now.
Was it shocking or just numb?
Probably more numb.
We noticed, time after time, as the conversation got tough, Brian would take a sip of water, holding back tears as shock and uncertainty consume him.
Sorry.
Don't apologize. This is your life.
The stories are hard to comprehend, even seeing it in person.
Our tap tower that had all the faucets and handles on it, that was about a mile down the river in a tree.
Sadly, it's not just New Origin. Breweries all around Asheville were hit hard.
We drove all the way to my boyfriend's bar by like 1:30, 2 o'clock. Parking lot is Class 2 Whitewater Rapids.
That's Karis Roberts. She leads the Asheville Brewers Alliance. She showed us more than 6 pictures of breweries devastated by the floods. At one point, she was on a bridge where people gathered to make sure friends were safe. They also saw firsthand the power of water.
It was just really, really scary. We watched a tractor trailer just float down the river and pow into, it's not Bowen Bridge, but one of the bridges right there.
Losing breweries would not just hurt owners and enthusiasts, it would hurt Asheville. A 2019 study found the industry contributes almost $1 billion to the metro area economy, creates 3,500 jobs, and is the second largest manufacturing employer in Asheville.
Looks like a few mugs down there.
Back at New Origin, Brian Fetting comes out here day after day.
Some of them made it through.
He pulls out mugs full of mud and an intact 4-pack of beer. His days are filled with this, and on the phone, desperate for help.
The hope is that some form of assistance comes in where that can bridge that gap between this and a business that's operating, a business that can support employees and families and get back to what we were doing. It seems almost selfish to hope for that, but we do. We hope there's some path.
What do you mean selfish? Is that like a survivor's guilt thing?
I mean, sure, a little. Yeah, there's so much going on that, like, for us to think about our business is maybe a little selfish, but we certainly are. We want to not only put food on our tables, but our employees as well.
Even breweries who avoided damage are facing tough decisions with a huge drop in business during the area's most important time of year.
No brewery is too big to fail. So we all need to watch what we're doing all the time, and making beer was not as profitable as it used to be even before this storm. So yeah, the math is tough, and we're taking the best care we can of our staff.
I think one of the hardest calls that I've had to take is a brewery saying that they weren't going to reopen.
Kearse Roberts says these breweries need loans similar to loans small businesses received during the pandemic.
Well, I mean, not everybody is going to make it, so there's some hard truths with that.
You know, normally breweries, like I was saying back there, all have each other's backs. And this is one of the first events that's made it really hard to have each other's backs, because it's like a survival mode.
That's why, when you can and where it's safe, these breweries, these communities, need all of us to visit now and in the years ahead.
It's a little piece of our labeler.
Brian Fetting just hopes his brewery will be one of them, somewhere, somehow.
Just having an understanding of, like, you know, will we be in the brewery business after this, is a big part of that. If there was, you know, a magic wand that said, like, hey, you will be, then I think that would take a big weight off. But right now, that there's so much uncertainty there that's really that cloud that hangs above us.
We have to take a quick break. When we come back, we head to Canton, a town that keeps getting knocked down, but finding a way to fight back.
Our daily decisions can have a massive impact on the quality of our lives. From the foods we eat to the places we live and everything in between, our health can send us on a quest for answers. Join me as we break down the science and politics behind some of the most important topics affecting our communities and learn what we can do about them.
Watch Exploring Your Health on the Spectrum News app. Available on all of your favorite devices.
Hey, pal. Ready for bed?
Hey, Dad. Do we really have the fastest internet speeds?
Yeah, with Spectrum, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. Can you use that to research volcanoes super fast?
Of course.
Can you learn to make a diorama super fast?
Yeah, you can do that too.
How fast exactly?
The absolute fast. When's your project due?
Tomorrow morning.
What have you done? Okay. I'll get the glue.
The fastest internet whenever you need it. From Spectrum.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
To a view from the mountains. We head to Canton now, a town that has been hit by storms, by a mill shutting down, and keep getting knocked down. But if there's one thing we know about this town, it is resilient and finds a way back.
We're in a different spot, and I think it's very important to us.
If If a town ever deserved a break, you'd be hard-pressed to find one more deserving than Canton, North Carolina.
We've made this walk so many times. I think this is the third or fourth time.
Yeah.
It was the last whistle.
It has a feeling that we're walking into a funeral, and that is the best way to say this.
And then we came back a year later. A year later, what does this walk feel like?
Resurrection.
And now here we are again. How are you feeling on
I
this
love
walk?
seeing you, Tim, but I'm getting a little tired of seeing you.
How does the walk feel now?
We're still here. You know, give me alternatives. You know, I've told some other people across the region, there's a little bit of hope that if there's an alternative to just leaving and giving up, I'm all ears. But this is the reality. There's nothing going to change it.
The reality, since 2021, 2 major floods ravaged the town, and a paper mill shut down, leaving more than 1,000 people out of a job in this town of some 4,400 residents. Mayor Zeb Smathers has seen it all as a native and serving 7 years as mayor. Pictures and video are stunning of the Helene damage, but even in person, sometimes it's hard to comprehend.
When you look around, I mean, this would be 28 feet of water above us right now. I mean, places that never flooded did.
And this town has seen flooding. The remnants of back-to-back hurricanes overwhelmed the town in 2004. Tropical Storm Fred flooded the town again in 2021, and now Helene just 3 years later.
So if you look at 20 years, from 04 to 24, in 20 years, Haywood County, Canton, has been impacted more by tropical-related storms than Charleston and the coast.
Despite more flooding, Canton's experience helped. Clearing debris from the river ahead of time paid off. But it can only help so much with 9 more feet of flooding compared to 2021.
It's eerie. It's eerie how calm and picturesque this river is usually and what it can become.
We first met Zeb Smathers 4 years ago, a young mayor who went away to college but came back to his small hometown, a mill town, some viewed best in the rearview mirror.
It was easy to slide into that mentality of saying, we just can't do it. Our best days are behind us. And again, what I saw down east in areas like Raleigh, like Durham, but also these other small towns that were starting to change around the state, finding their new identity. I gambled. I came back and said, we can do this, and we can bring back businesses because of who we are.
The Canton comeback worked, embracing its blue-collar roots. Businesses filled Main Street, but then flooding from Fred hit just months after our visit. Then, in 2023, the town's paper mill shut down after 115 years in business, leaving more than 1,000 without jobs and a town potentially without an identity.
They're our family anyway. I mean, we spend more time with the guys in here and the ladies in here than we do our own family, so I mean, they are our family.
A deal to sell the mill was supposed to close on October 1st, giving the town hope for new jobs and a bright future. But a new lawsuit related to the storm and purchase price has stalled the sale.
I hope it's not prolonged litigation because, again, part of our recovery is understanding we do have a future. You know, I'm still exceptionally excited and optimistic about what that site could be.
Meanwhile, assessing new damage from Helene continues, as a recovery from Fred in 2021 was also ongoing.
I mean, the Moose Lodge went through all the storms, and this one did it in.
Wow. Then there's the brewery we visited numerous times in our stops to Canton. Flooded in 2021, but way worse in 2024.
You said the water was up to where?
Very top of the roof, if not the roof.
We passed by flat land where buildings stood before flooding wiped it away. But it's the homes with debris by the curb that hurt Mayor Smathers the most.
I was able to go in each one of these houses. They were home. and walk through these people cleaning their stuff. You see their pictures of their wedding, their kids, their items. And I mean, look, sometimes it's things that are not valuables, but it is valuable to them. And to see people covered in mud, tears in their eyes, having to throw their livelihoods out and put in piles to be picked up and discarded, that is absolutely emotionally and mentally, it just breaks you.
It makes you wonder how it doesn't break this town. How many times can this town keep taking hits before it throws in the towel?
This has taken a lot out of all of us, myself included, to answer some of these questions. We're just here, we're rebuilding. If another storm comes, it's going to be, I do think a third strike is going to be a lot different story.
A sobering statement from a mayor who exudes optimism. Something tells me this town will rally yet again and hope Mother Nature shows a little mercy in the future.
We got to take one more break. When we come back, we head to Brevard, where 4 years ago was a story about politics. This time, it's going to be a story about economics and a great comeback.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Everyone deserves to live a full life. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/act now.
It's on Friday. I'll be on the field. You're gonna be there?
Is that the football guy? Can you give me a minute? Thanks.
So, do you have any plans on Saturday? Because, I was thinking you're still...
Is that the guy? Dad! Yeah, it's the guy!
Oh, I found Mr. Squishy.
Louder!
Here, there, everywhere. Reliable internet where you need it most. With Spectrum.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
Welcome back to A View from the Mountains. I'm Tim Boyum. For our last story, we head to Brevard, where they did indeed have damage. But we were here 4 years ago to talk about politics. This time, we're talking about recovery.
Like so many mountain stories, this one starts with the sounds of a peaceful creek.
It just looks so harmless.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's pastoral, you know, but it wasn't 4 weeks ago.
A staple in Brevard for nearly 6 decades, the Pisgah Fish Camp only saw water in the parking lot once. Then came Helene.
We had about 3 feet of water in the building when we came down that Friday morning, and it just destroys everything. I was weird. I enjoyed it. I never minded working here.
We first met Mike Hawkins this time of year in 2020. He helps run the restaurant his father started with his brother and sister. but we came to talk about politics.
You know, we were concerned about certain things that were going on nationally with the party and statewide with the party.
He and two other Republican county commissioners wrote an op-ed leaving the Republican Party due to President Trump.
I gave it quite a bit of thought. I would not put my name out there with an R beside it. I have to either just play it out and just go silently or stand up for what I think.
All three of them were promptly voted out of office in this Republican-rich area. More than 20 years of experience on the commission up in smoke.
The people made a choice, and in this particular snapshot in time, in a highly partisan election, people wanted to send signals.
4 years later, Hawkins remains out of office, facing a new challenge thanks to Mother Nature.
Wow. So this is where we've spent our lives, you know, feeding people in Western North Carolina.
Back in the restaurant today, the remnants of 3 feet of flooding destroyed the equipment and walls.
That was my first job, was to cook hush puppies in the kitchen when I was 8 years old or 9 years old.
Hawkins' family faces a $250,000 bill in equipment replacement alone, most of it out of pocket. Does that concern you?
It's a go, no-go decision. So yeah, we got to figure out, you know, $250,000, Tim, when you're 30 years old, to do that, to go in debt to that level, you get it. When you're in your 60s, you kind of have to sit and think and say, how are we going to do this?
On top of that, the closure comes during peak tourism season. Not a single hush puppy sold. He estimates it could take to January or February to reopen. The restaurant's history and troubles caught the attention of Governor Cooper, who made a visit.
I'm not being partisan in saying this. I think the work that the governor's done and the governor's staff has done with Western North Carolina, they're here. And particularly the governor, he doesn't have to be here. He's not running for anything, but he's here and showing people that he really cares about the people of the community and the region, and that's important because we've got, as a region, we've got a long way to go.
And if there's one thing we've learned about Mike Hawkins over the years, he's deeply invested in the entire region.
I'm shouting to anyone who will listen that what we're facing in Western North Carolina is a Katrina-type situation.
Now out of office, Hawkins still sits on several boards promoting Western North Carolina and the rural economy.
If you talk about the region of damage here, it's larger than than several states, and so we have to be thinking long-term about how we rebuild in a smart way, in a thoughtful way, in a way that will help mitigate some of the effects of if an event like this happens again, which I think it will within many of our lifetimes. How can we rebuild in a way that we don't have this same type of damage?
He's worried people who lost homes will never return. He's also worried about the workforce.
They're dealing with housing issues. They're dealing with, in many cases, transportation issues. Their cars got flooded out. They're dealing with family issues where they may not have a problem with their home, but their mother or their sister or their children have had housing issues that they're having to deal with. So it's this overall disruption that is the biggest concern.
Hawkins worries most, though, about losing a piece of who they are here in the mountains.
The person at the Red Wolf Gallery across the street is also the person who coaches the Little League soccer team and is active in your church. And so it's the small business and these people who make up the small business in Western North Carolina. It's the social bedrock of these communities. I'm really concerned.
And so many have told us the needs have changed from needing cases of water and toilet paper to needing financial resources for infrastructure and to keep small businesses afloat. Small businesses like Pisgah Fish Camp, not only for the economy, but as a reminder of what makes this place special.
We've been part of the community for 58 years, and I think it's important that the fish camp, we all think that it's important that the fish camp continues, so we're working every avenue we can work to make sure that the fish camp continues.
So you believe it will?
I believe it will, yeah.
As you've seen throughout these stories, there's an unmistakable spirit that makes this place special.
The people that founded the mountains, I think, were very resourceful and independent and have always been. I think generations later, we still consider ourselves pretty independent and resourceful.
It gives you hope these devastated places will survive. We heard about it over and over during our visit.
Mountain people are very, very proud of what they have, and they've worked very hard to have it. So everybody giving and bringing all these supplies up, very few people really want to take them. And they're the ones who need it.
They don't want help, but more than happy to give it, even if they lost everything themselves. It was hard to put that spirit into words until Mayor
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation. Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
You put in unlimited hours and unlimited passion because your small business has unlimited potential. Spectrum Business is built to connect you with that potential. With Spectrum One for Business, you get fast, reliable internet, advanced Wi-Fi, and a mobile line, all for only $49.99 per month. That's more connectivity at a better price than other providers. And with Spectrum One for Business, the value only grows. With award-winning multi-layered security to defend all your devices. If it's connected, it's protected. Get all the connectivity your business needs for the lowest price around. Only $49.99 per month. That's your business made limitless. That's life unlimited.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Spectrum News anchor Bree Driscoll here in the heart of Times Square, where we are ready to celebrate the new year. But before the ball drops, we are sharing the major moments of 2024 you saw right here on Spectrum News. The unforgettable stories that shaped our world at home, abroad, and the technology you use every day, those who entertained us and those we lost. Well, let's begin with the biggest story of them all, the twists and turns of the 2024 election. Here's Spectrum's Evan Kozlov.
As we enter 2024, we seem primed for a 2020 rematch between President Joe Biden and the man he succeeded, former President Donald Trump.
Come November, we will vote on record numbers.
We're going to put America first. We're going to make America great again.
But first, Trump needed to dispatch a crowded field of Republicans seeking the nomination.
Chaos follows him.
By March, he had just one opponent left, his former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley.
They call it Super Tuesday for a reason.
But after Trump had a decisive win on Super Tuesday, Nikki Haley called it quits. Meanwhile, the Democratic primary was more like a coronation, Biden facing no serious competition. But there were warning signs that Biden's age might become an issue. In February, Special Counsel Robert Hur recommended not bringing charges against Biden for retaining classified documents, saying a jury would likely see Biden as an elderly man with a poor memory.
My memory is fine.
Trump, meanwhile, had to leave the campaign trail in April for his trial in New York on charges of falsifying documents to cover up hush money payments to adult adult film star Stormy Daniels. In the end, he was convicted of 34 charges, the first time in history that a former U.S. president became a felon.
We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
But Trump soon scored a landmark victory before the Supreme Court when the conservative majority ruled that presidents enjoyed legal immunity for official acts.
It's Joe Biden.
Then came a major turning point in the campaign, Biden's disastrous performance in his first scheduled debate with Trump.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Biden's halting delivery and meandering responses alarmed Democrats, who began calling on him to leave the race.
I am running and going to win again.
For nearly a month, Biden remained defiant. But in late July, the pressure was too much. Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris.
The best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Also in July, this stunning moment.
Take a look at what happened.
Trump was nearly killed in an assassination attempt while speaking at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Remarkably, the bullet only grazed his right ear. 2 days later, wearing a bandage, Trump received a hero's welcome at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight.
Democrats, meanwhile, rallied around Kamala Harris at the Democratic Convention in Chicago, where she tried to quickly unify the party before a mad rush to Election Day.
I promise to be a president for all Americans.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
In September, Trump and Harris held their first and only debate.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. Eat the cat. Eat the cat.
A face-off memorable for Trump's baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio.
Hello, Michigan.
It's so good to be back in Arizona.
Both candidates focused their fall campaigns on 7 key swing states.
Wisconsin.
Nevada.
Pennsylvania. North Carolina.
Before it was up to voters on November 5th.
The 47th president of the United States.
On Election Day, Trump would win every single one of the swing states and became the first Republican presidential candidate in 2 decades to win the popular vote.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Republicans also won the majority in the Senate and barely kept control of the House, giving them a trifecta of power in the new year.
And after the election, Special Counsel Jack Smith decided to end both federal prosecutions of Trump because of Justice Department policy against charging presidents. Trump is now moving quickly to nominate loyalists to his cabinet, while President Biden prepares to leave office after a half-century on the public stage. Reporting here in Washington, I'm Evan Kozloff, Spectrum News.
Well, the U.S. election was the center of focus here at home. Around the world, 2024 saw new conflict, civil war, and the collapse of a dictatorship after a decade of fighting. Plus, surprising announcements from Britain's royal family. Here's Spectrum's Daniel Grimes.
From destruction in the Middle East to fighting in Ukraine, international conflicts raged over the past year, but displaced people in Lebanon are returning home after the U.S. and France brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, raising hopes that perhaps a deal could be reached between Israel and Hamas.
We're going to keep pushing to accelerate a ceasefire deal that ensures Israel's security, but brings hostages home and ends the suffering of the Palestinian people and children.
Over the past year, Israel's war expanded to multiple fronts, with ground troops fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel and Iran exchanging missile attacks. President-elect Donald Trump has sought to shift the focus back to the remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza, writing on social media that if they are not released before he takes office, quote, those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. The nearly 15 months of war between Israel and Hamas has also decimated the hospital system in Gaza and left a humanitarian crisis in its wake.
Hospitals must be protected, both from use for military purposes and from attack by any party to the conflict.
But in nearby Syria, a surprise offensive by rebels ended nearly 14 years of civil war and the brutal 50-year dictatorship of the Assad family. The leading rebel group is considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. and other Western nations. Its leader vows to work on behalf of all Syrians and has no interest in terrorism, but the Biden administration is taking a wait-and-see approach.
The opposition groups, the leaders of many of these groups are saying the right things, as the president said, but we're looking for action, not just words.
One reason Syria's regime collapsed is that Russia could not come to its aid because of its nearly 3
Good day, I'm Ruben Jones. You're watching breaking news coverage on Spectrum News here in Washington, D.C. New Orleans officials are giving an update now regarding a man who plowed through a crowd on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter early this morning on New Year's Day, killing at least 10 and injuring dozens of others. Let's listen in now.
Questions I will be unable to answer at this time. The FBI is the lead investigative agency, and we're investigating this as an attack of terrorism along with our partners. Today at approximately 3:15 a.m. Central Standard Time, an individual drove a pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing at least 10 individuals and injuring dozens more. After hitting the crowd, he exited the vehicle and fired upon local law enforcement. Law enforcement returned fire and the subject was pronounced deceased at the scene. 2 law enforcement officers were injured and transported to local hospitals. The subject has been identified as 42-year-old Samsoud Dim Jabbar, a U.S.-born citizen from Texas. He was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to be rented, and we are working to confirm how the subject came in possession of this vehicle. An ISIS flag was located on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the subject's potential associations and affiliations with terrorist organizations. Weapons and potential improvised explosive devices, IEDs, were located in the subject's vehicle. Other potential IEDs were also located in the French Quarter. As of now, 2 IEDs have been found and rendered safe. The FBI Special Agent bomb technicians, as well as our local law enforcement partners, have been working to determine if any of these devices are viable, and they'll work to render those devices safe. The FBI, we are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism. We're aggressively running down all of the leads to identify the possible subject's associates. We're working to ensure that there is no further threat. We do not believe that Jabbar was solely responsible. We are aggressively running down every lead, including those of his known associates. That's why we need the public's help. We are asking if anybody has any interactions with Samsoud Dim Jabbar in the last 72 hours that you contact us. The FBI is asking the public's help. We're asking anyone who has information, video, or pictures to provide it to the FBI. We have set up a digital tip line as well as our 1-800 number, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Please provide us with any information that can assist us in this investigation. Once again, thank you for your patience and assistance. For an updated statement or information, please check the FBI's website and our social media accounts. I will now turn over to Mayor Cantrell. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Agent Duncan, for your leadership and the full support of the FBI. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest condolences to the families and loved ones that were impacted by this tragedy on Bourbon Street and in the heart of the city of New Orleans. And I know that the entire New Orleans City Council grieves along right with me, no doubt about that, and our people and our families. My priority will continue to be to ensure that victims that remain on Bourbon Street now will be serviced and removed as soon as possible. But as stated, the FBI is in charge of this investigation and are doing everything necessary to make this happen. I also want to acknowledge hearing from President Biden, all of our federal partners, but most importantly, calling Governor Landry this morning, responded with haste, and we do say thank you. And of course, a demonstration of a unified support is right here in this room. That's how we collectively responded to this tragedy in the city of New Orleans. The mission now is to facilitate, support, and coordinate safety procedures to keep our residents and our visitors safe. I've gone to the hospital along with Chief Kirkpatrick to visit our police officers, and considering their injuries, they're doing well. As I mentioned, this investigation is ongoing, and the FBI remains the lead in the investigation. It is an active crime scene as well. We're committed, no doubt, to uncovering all details surrounding this tragedy. And we're taking every necessary step to put even more safety procedures in place, especially given the nature of the investigation. I'm going to ask people to do not go around our secured area if there is no essential need to do so. It matters, and again, it is an active crime scene. I also want you all to know that the Greater New Orleans Foundation has set up a fund to assist victims, and that information will be provided to you. Thank you, Ganoff. Again, I want to thank this unified team. We're leaning in. We will be relentless, and we will do everything that it takes to render real justice. This team will. I want to also just thank our citizens for your heartfelt prayers. New Orleans is a world-class city, and I can say that I've heard from world leaders all this morning and up until now, in addition to my brother and sister mayors across this country. They're calling, they're responding, and they're standing with the city of New Orleans. What they always say and want me to reiterate, they understand the resilience of this community, and we're strong in that regard, and I will say second to none. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our governor, and as I mentioned, who has not wavered any in leaning in, providing the necessary support, and standing right here with me. And I say thank you, Governor. And I know the First Lady is standing with us as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Again, I want to thank the mayor. Since about 3:45 this morning, when she called me, we have all been working just around the clock to both secure the city and to solve this act. You know, again, I want to reiterate that our prayers go out with all of those who have been affected by this tragedy. I want to thank our law enforcement officers. I want to thank our medical personnel. I want to thank our first responders. And most importantly, I want to thank the two New Orleans police officers who not only laid their life on the line, but were able to eliminate the threat this morning. Let me say, we have made public safety a state priority from day one. And I think that if you look around me today, right now, and you look at the people who are standing around, that is their commitment as well. We intend to be transparent in assessing any defects that may have existed in the system so that we can address them. It's the only way to ensure that any mistakes that were made are corrected. Specifically, we have been trying and working very diligently to address security concerns in preparation for the Super Bowl since October. And it's interesting because, ironically, in preparation for the Super Bowl, I had intended to issue an emergency declaration tomorrow so that we could bring all of our federal, state, and local agencies to bear in preparation for the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras. But because of the events today, I have amended that emergency declaration and issued it today. So again, that declaration will allow our federal, state, and local partners to bring all of the resources necessary to get this city safe. In light of that executive order, I have also ordered the mobilization of a military police company. I've asked General Freelou to mobilize a military police company to assist both New Orleans Police and LSP and the FBI. It is important for our citizens and guests of this state to know that we are doing everything we can to secure their safety in this city. We want to make it clear, the Superdome and the surrounding area is safe. But I've always said that the safety of this entire city is something that is always paramount to me. With that, I would like to turn it over to Jeff with the Super Bowl Commissioner. Jeff Dunley. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Obviously, we wish we weren't here for this reason today. The Sugar Bowl Committee has a 90-year history of being a good corporate citizen. That's why this tragedy hurts us as much as anybody right now. So our condolences, thoughts, and prayers go out to the victims and their families as we all work through this. Of course, anytime we have a major event in the city of New Orleans, public safety is paramount, and we have full faith and confidence in the governor and the mayor and all the assets, the federal, state, and local resources that they've applied to this event so that we can ultimately bring those responsible to justice and carry on with the major events that we have in front of us. Speaking of which, we were scheduled this evening to have a CFP quarterfinal played in the Superdome at 7:45. We have been in consultation with ESPN, with the College Football Playoff, with the Southeastern Conference, with the University of Georgia, with Notre Dame, all parties, and all agree that it's in the best interest of everybody and public safety that we postpone the game for 24 hours. Work is fast about to set up a safe and efficient and fun environment for tomorrow night. There'll be more details on that in the coming hours, but for now, that's the plan, that we're going to move forward and play the game. And again, we reiterate our thanks to everyone up here for the important work they're doing. We live in the fun and games world with what we do, but we certainly recognize the importance of this, and we're going to support it 100%. So thank you.
I'd like to bring up Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Jeff. I wish I understood better why bad things happen to good people. If I make it to heaven, I'm going to ask. For those people who don't believe in objective evil, all you have to do is look at what happened in our city early this morning. If this doesn't trigger the gag reflex of every American, every fair-minded American, I'll be very surprised. I'm here because these are my people. I'm here because these are my people's friends. I'm here because there are a lot of Louisianians that are scared tonight. I don't want them to be. There's a lot of information going around. Some of it is actually true. Some of it isn't. The federal government is now in charge of this investigation. By that, I mean the White House, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Justice. I have not talked to the FBI. Maybe they've talked to my staff. I don't know. I did talk to the Secretary of Homeland Security a little while ago. And I told him that with all the respect I could muster, that we expect to put the full force and resources of the investigation. Our state troopers, our local police departments, our sheriffs, we've got many sheriffs here today, have been terrific so far. The federal government is cooperating with them. I hope that will continue. Here's what I want to ask from the federal government. Catch these people. Catch these people. And then tell the American people the truth. Now, I don't want you to tell us yet anything that's going to interfere with your investigation. And there are things that I've been told that I think are true that I'm not sharing with you today because it could interfere with their investigation. But after we get to the bottom of this, they need to tell the American people the truth, and the people of New Orleans the truth, and the people of America the truth. I think the mayor and the governor are very wise to postpone this ball game for 24 hours. There's just too much stuff we don't know, and it's just not worth it. But I guess my final point is, I will promise you this: I will, when it is appropriate and this investigation is complete, you will find out what happened and who was responsible, or I will raise fresh hell. And I will chase those in the federal government who are responsible for telling us what happened, like they stole Christmas.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Congressman Carter, I think you're on.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Thank you to all of our law enforcement agents for doing a yeoman's job, for stepping up at a time when we needed you most, for employing the resources of all of our partners. This is all hands on deck, from the White House all the way down. I've been in communication with the White House since early this morning. Secretary Mayorkas, leaders in all of our federal, local, and state agencies. The President has made it very clear that he intends to bring every resource to bear to not only tell the truth, but to provide the resources to bring these cowards to justice. I want to personally thank the men and women in uniform who put their lives on the line to protect our citizens and our visitors. To our mayor and our governor for acting expeditiously and bringing us all together. To our sheriffs from the surrounding areas who have been Johnny on the spot, recognizing that if it happens in New Orleans, it can happen anywhere. We don't have the luxury of being myopic. In this community, we work together. We don't point fingers. We don't blame. We go, guys. Let it be clear that the full faith and credit of the United States and every agency therein is on the ground, working. And for those who may have played a role in this horrific act of cowardice, we will find you. We will bring you to justice. New Orleans is a place that heralds its ability to protect its citizens, that heralds its ability to manage major events. Super Bowls, Sugar Bowls, Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, Essence Festival, you name it, no one does it better than law enforcement in New Orleans and in the surrounding area. Kudos to those two officers who've been wounded. Our hearts go out to those who lost loved ones. Our hearts go out to those who are wounded and on the mend in the hospital. Citizens, now is the time to stay calm, to be vigilant. This is not a time to come out to sightsee. Listen to your federal, local, state officials. Be vigilant. If you saw something, say something. If you know something, tell someone. There are tip lines, there's information available. Please, all hands on deck. Rest assured that the decision that was made to postpone the game was not done lightly. It was done with one single thing in mind: public safety. Making sure that the citizens and visitors of this great city, not only for this event, but for every event you come to in Louisiana, that you will be safe. And we will use every resource possible, as the governor has said, as the mayor has said, and every law enforcement agent here has said. Our energy, our commitment will be to make sure that you're safe now and for every event in the future. God bless you, and let's stay strong.
Thank you, Congressman.
Attorney General.
I first want to extend my sincerest condolences to the families of the victims. Parents got a phone call last night, early this morning, that no parent ever wants to receive. And as a parent of children who come to New Orleans and spend time here, I know that that is just something that, you know, we hold our breath sometimes till they're home safe, and some people did not come home safe. And we also have some people who are fighting for their lives right now in the hospital. So I'd ask everyone to pray for them. They need our support and they need our prayers. This was a heinous act, a heinous cowardly act, and we will find them and we will bring them to justice. My office will be providing both investigative and prosecutorial support to the City of New Orleans, to the District Attorney, Jason Williams in New Orleans, as I have done for months. We will continue to do that. We will provide the governor with whatever support that he needs, and the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, whatever support that they need. I'll be here to help. I will be here to stand with the City of New Orleans. We will bring them to justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor and Madam Mayor. For those who do not know me, my name is Ann Kirkpatrick. I'm the Chief of Police of New Orleans. My official title is Superintendent, but my role is as Chief of Police. You know, you've heard some of the details today, and over the last 24 hours, we had approximately 400 officers in the French Quarter. And as we know, this is not just an act of terrorism. This is evil. And when we face evil, we have a choice. We can run in fear, or we can indeed stand in strength. In a time of crisis, people are looking for leadership. You are looking at the leadership. And I promise you, as the Chief of Police of this city has been tried by fire before. But fire purifies. Fire makes things stronger. We have a plan. We know what to do. We're going to get these people. There is a path forward. Very pleased that we will be back to having a wonderful game tomorrow night. New Orleans police have proven their ability to make the city safer. Just 2 years ago, we were the murder capital of America. Today, from that time 2 years ago, we have driven our murder rate more than 50% down. So we have a track record. But this is different because it's terrorism. Now, I want to thank all of our law enforcement partners. You're fabulous, and we appreciate the partnership. But last night, 3 of our officers engaged this terrorist who shot at them. 3 of the officers returned fire. Those officers did not run in fear. I liked what the mayor said this morning. New Orleans police and all law enforcement is built. We are built for dealing with evil, with things that would cause others to be in fear, but instead our officers, and last night NOPD particular, stood strong. They did not run. They did kill the terrorist. We have 2 officers indeed who received gunfire. They will be okay, and we have personally gone to see them. But this is leadership for you. And I promise, as the Chief of Police of this fantastic city, that I will be strong and firm and fearless. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. In wrapping it up, I want to just close with a couple of things. I want to thank Senator Kennedy and Congressman Carter. I want to thank again all of our law enforcement officers out there. I want the families of the victims to know that I will be issuing an executive order that tomorrow, when Notre Dame plays Georgia, every flag of every state building in this state is going to be at half-mast. In remembrance of them, but remembering something else. That fear in this state is a liar. And these folks right here are going to make sure that justice is served. And for the citizens out there that were saying, well, man, do I really want to go to the Sugar Bowl tomorrow? I'll tell you one thing, your governor's going to be there. That is proof, believe you me, that that facility in this city is safer today than it was yesterday. And as we come to additional events in this city, I know in speaking with Senator Kennedy and Congressman Carter and FBI, acting director, and the incoming administration, that they are going to ensure that this city has the resources necessary to protect our citizens and our guests. And so with that, we'll take some questions.
All right, if you could, we'll start over here with CBS. Katie, we'll work our way across the room. If I miss you, just give me a holler. I may not see you. Go ahead, Katie.
Thank you, sir. Katie Royce with CBS News. I think this has been a really tough day for a lot of people, but at this point, we're hearing that the death toll, according to some FBI sources, has gone up to 15. Is this true?
Who wants to answer that?
I can speak for it. Unless you have a final number. We do not have a final number. We know that we have confirmed 10, but we did have people who had been transported who were in critical condition. And so I do not know that, but I can confirm 10.
And one quick follow-up question, if I may. We know that there have been some local records in Texas about a misdemeanor background on this suspect. Any signs or warnings ahead of time about this person or their plans for what happened this morning?
Because that is the investigation part, I will give the FBI.
At this time, we cannot go into details about the subject's history. What I can tell you, the person was an Army veteran. We believe he was honorary discharged, but we're working through this process, figuring out all this information. The goal of the FBI is providing you with the most accurate and complete information. So once that information is confirmed, we'll make sure we push that out. Thank you.
Ariel.
At this time, do you know exactly, as far as the victims, how many are from here in Louisiana versus out of state and their ages maybe?
At this time, I can't go into details about all the victims. We want to make sure that the family is notified appropriately before we put any information out there. So once the families are all notified, then we'll go ahead and release a statement to everyone.
And I would ask the press, in relation to the victims and those that are in hospitals, if we could just refrain from worrying about them so their loved ones can take care of them, and the medical personnel that are trying to get them out of the hospital can do so. And as information becomes available, but we want to respect the privacy of those who are still either fighting for their lives or being cared for. Thank you.
A follow-up, if I may.
Go ahead.
You guys mentioned accomplices. You don't think that the suspect acted alone. About how many more suspects are you guys looking into at this point?
It's a range of suspects. Right now with the FBI, we do not run a rule anything else. So that's why we're asking if anyone has had any interaction with the deceased subject Jabbar in the last 72 hours. Provide us with this information. You can provide us that information through 1-800-CALL-FBI or our digital tips line, which is available on our social media website, as well as the big FBI website.
Can I say something right quick? Tell me who you're with.
WDSU.
WDSU. Okay, and CBS.
NBC's over here on the right.
Oh, that's an unusual position.
I don't get it.
You wouldn't. Look, the FBI is not going to be able to answer those questions, okay? They will eventually, I promise you, okay? Once the FBI has a chance to investigate all this, along working with state police, working with Homeland Security, working with the city of New Orleans, they're going to tell you what happened. I can promise you that, or I'm going to raise fresh hell. But right now, they're in the process of trying to catch the other bad guys. And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt for a while.
26.
Yeah, I had a question about the victims. I know that there was obviously gunfire exchange. So I guess how many victims were shot, and then how many were injured?
Look, again, let me reiterate both Special Agent Duncan and Senator Kennedy. There's a lot of, I get that y'all want to know minute details. What we don't want to do is impede this investigation or spend any time talking about things that don't get us closer folks down and securing the city. And so at a particular point in time, we will release as much information as we can. But at this time, in relation to the investigation, I would ask y'all to refrain from those.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to just have more of the same as the governor just said, we're going to provide that information, but we're going to wrap the press conference now. Hold on. Let me finish. You weren't listening. If all of the questions are more of the same, what the governor just said in position, we won't be doing that to provide that information. And if you have a quick different question, mine's different. Then let's do that quickly and move on. Okay?
My question.
Ma'am.
Hold on, sir. Hold on. Then who was next? We had over here.
Hi, Rachel Wolf from the Wall Street Journal. You said you were confident there are multiple suspects involved. What makes you confident in that?
Well, like, why would we tell you that? Again, we want to answer pertinent questions. But anything that would lead to impeding or endangering this investigation is not going to be said, okay? And we will, as information unfolds, this is a very fluid process. And remember something, too. We're doing two things. We're hunting some bad people down, and we're securing the city, too. We're getting ready for a Sugar Bowl tomorrow. So if y'all would, again, if you have questions regarding the Sugar Bowl, the safety of the city, or something to that effect, we're happy to answer.
Over here.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
Usually in parts of the French Quarter, specifically in parts of Bourbon Street, there are bollards. We're hearing that some of those may have been down because of repairs. Can you speak to that? And maybe was there any backup option of putting a truck there or an NOPD car there?
Well, let me tell you, yeah. I'm going to let the mayor answer. I want you to know that's one of the first things I thought of this morning when the mayor called me. Okay? And I will tell you that whatever the problem was is going to be solved.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor, and thank you for the question. And it's been on your radar since this morning. As it relates to the bollards on Bourbon Street, over 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, the city of New Orleans implemented an infrastructure project placing bollards on Bourbon Street. Shortly thereafter, the malfunctions of those bollards ensued, from Mardi Gras beads on down. But the New Orleans Police Department, of course, deemed them inefficient because they did not operate the way that they were intended to do. Because the city of New Orleans is hosting Super Bowl this year, it gave the city of New Orleans an opportunity to go further and deeper with infrastructure improvements, as we've been talking about. So as a result of that, we were able to build in bollard replacement into our Super Bowl infrastructure package. And because of that, the city of New Orleans has moved forward with that infrastructure that is nearing completion. Bollards were not up because they are near completion, with the expectation of being completed, of course, by Super Bowl and way before Super Bowl. But that is the reason. Now, the New Orleans Police Department and Chief, you can speak to the deployment to respond to our needs and existing conditions.
All right, so we have been aware of the bollard situation for a long time, and we did indeed harden those target areas where the bollards are. We have patrol cars out there as a hard target, as well as with barriers. Now, I want to share with y'all, if you did not know, that this particular terrorist drove around onto the sidewalk and got around the hard target, where he did have a car there, we had barriers there, we had officers there, and they still got around. Now, the wedges that you see out there as well, we knew that that had malfunction problems. And I want you to understand, let's say we put the wedge up and it got stuck. There is no way that ambulance could get in or out, people couldn't get in and out, so we knew that these were malfunction. So we did indeed have a plan, but the terrorist defeated it.
Let me just say this. We recognize we got a problem right here, right? We're going to fix it. It is going to be a top priority as we go into the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras. And the solution that we're going to come up with is going to be a permanent one. It's going to be placed into the standard operating procedure of having major events and securing that quarter.
A follow-up, if I may. Obviously, Sugar Bowl, of course, going until tomorrow, but I'm sure after that game, a lot of people are going to want to celebrate. Are there plans to keep Bourbon Street closed? What does that look like?
So right now, Bourbon Street is an active crime scene, and the FBI is in charge of it. When they clear it, and it does not become an active crime scene anymore, we're going to open it up.
Potentially.
Potentially.
With Fox 8. Can we ask about this military police presence that you want to call it? Is this a private security like Blackwater? Also, would that be a first that a private security firm is mobilized to supplement local and state law enforcement?
No. We're not. This is our National Guard. Yep. These are our citizens that we bring it in. It's a military police company that we recognize we need some more resources. We need some more boots on the ground because, again, what we're doing now is twofold. We've got an active investigation, and we've got enhanced security. Before this event, we were just enhancing and working on security. So we brought some additional resources.
Jesse Kurtz with NBC News. Thank you for holding the press briefing. I just want to clarify something first. You were just talking about bollards that are being repaired, talking about a lift gate that are replaced and then a lift gate that's not been working. Was there a vehicle in place of that lift gate last night? Were there things in place of those bollards which are being repaired?
Sure, the chief spoke to the plan in place, and that is yes.
That was indeed.
So anything that is currently in the midst of being repaired had a backup replacement?
It had vehicles and officers were there where all of those ballasts have been. We had that. We knew. So we did have it. And like I said, in this particular case, terrorists just went all the way around up onto the sidewalk.
And lift gate, what about for the lift gate? Was there a vehicle backing in and out to block that lift gate area, or was that just down and open? Because that's what we've heard from witnesses.
Chief, Captain. The reason I'm calling the captain, he's the captain over that district, and that is a question I'm going to let him address for you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Captain LaJean Roberts of the 8th District. Yes, we did have a vehicle strategically placed right in front of the wedge, preventing access onto the roadway.
And in terms of the framework of security that was already in place on Bourbon Street, I know this is an ongoing project of improvement, but with how that was all aligned, was someone getting up on a sidewalk considered impossible or nearly impossible, or was this not something you expected you would have to account for?
Yes, of course, it wasn't something we expected to account for. The bollards they're actually wedges. They're strategically placed 5 locations throughout the French Quarter on the roadway. This particular terrorist drove onto the sidewalk behind the police car to gain access to the 100 block of Bourbon Street.
So if you're worried about someone ever driving down Bourbon Street, why weren't you worried about someone driving up the sidewalk in the same way, or at least bracing for you the same way?
Okay. All right, look. We can go on what ifs forever. This is evil. And that guy could have easily gone down the sidewalk of Canal Street, where there were a ton of pedestrians on there as well.
And there are.
That's right. You're right.
So that's
right.
Hold on
a second. We got to just want you to know, however, we recognize, I said earlier, that where there are defects in this system, we are going to be transparent, and we are going to address them with the city and make sure that we fill those gaps as best we can. Yeah.
Yeah, Chelsea Brazen with Axios.
I have a question just about sort of ongoing public safety today. Special Agent mentioned 2 possible IEDs. Were those in the same location? Should residents in the French Quarter or elsewhere be concerned about potential other situations?
The 2 IEDs, they were in different locations, and what we've done in conjunction with our local and state partners, we've gone through and done a sweep to identify anything that we thought was suspicious, and we have not. However, as I said before, if the public sees something, please reach out to us so that way we can go through and verify that we did not miss. But we conducted initial sweeps, I think, starting shortly after our initial conference.
I'm going to thank you, Agent. I do want to share that we have a plan, and we have been implementing that plan. One of those plans is that we have swept all of these areas. The word swept means we have put officers out there as a grid, walking down the streets, every street, the French Quarter, looking for suspicious packages, bags, ice chests, you name it. And they have been walking it as a grid. We've been doing the same thing on Poydras and all the accesses into the Superdome. Part of the safety plan is we have bomb dogs out there sweeping the Superdome and all the exterior area, and we're locking that down. That will be locked down through the game tomorrow. So that's a part of that safety plan, and we've already been implementing it.
Okay, thank you all for coming out.
Question back here for the governor on the MKs. How many MKs will be deployed to New Orleans?
Right now, there's I think it's General Freelo, 100.
100.
100, and, yeah. All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
What gives you the confidence tomorrow night it'll be safe? Right.
I'm going to be there.
Yes,
Me too.
You're all saying you're
And you've been listening to New Orleans officials with the latest information on a deadly attack that left 10 people dead and 35 injured. They were killed after a driver identified by the FBI this afternoon as suspect 42-year-old Shamsa Din Jabbar. He apparently intentionally rammed into a crowd at a New Year's Eve celebration in the heart of the French Quarter as people were celebrating New Year's Eve celebrations in New Orleans early this morning. Here on the first day of 2025, the FBI says the suspect was driving a Ford pickup truck, which appears to have been rented, and it's working to confirm how the subject came into possession of the vehicle. Now, the suspect is a U.S. citizen from Texas, and an ISIS flag was located in the vehicle. The FBI is working to determine potential affiliations with terrorist organizations. Weapons and a potential IED were located in the vehicle, and other potential IEDs, there were 2 that the FBI talked about, were located in the French Quarter. Now, President Joe Biden released a statement on the attack a little while ago. It reads in part, "My heart goes out to the victims and their families who were simply trying to celebrate the holiday. There is no justification for violence of any kind, and we will not tolerate any attacks on any of our nation's communities." Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump posted this on Truth Social, saying, quote, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen. Our hearts are with all of the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil." Important to note that we are still waiting on more information about that suspect, and as the New Orleans police chief did describe, crime has been down in the city of New Orleans. Now at 2:50 live here, I'm Ruben Jones in our Washington studio. We're joined by Chief Jim Bierman, who has spent more than 40 years in policing. He is now a senior fellow and advisory board member of the Center for Evidence-Based Crime Policy. And on the phone, we're also joined by Spectrum's criminal justice reporter, Dean Meminger, based in New York City. Gentlemen, thank you both for your time this afternoon. Chief, let me start with you, because I think perhaps the most eyebrow-raising moment from this press conference was when the FBI said they do not believe the suspect was solely responsible. That really changes the dynamics of this investigation. What behind the scenes are the FBI and local police authorities likely doing to figure out other potential connections with this suspect?
Absolutely. It is very insightful, and there are efforts
underway all over the country, I suspect, to try to determine his associates, his activities, and they'll be looking at everything from his digital footprints to who he knows individually and what role they may have had. So that they have made substantive progress in that area, or the ASAC would have said that.
Dean, there were some tense moments during that press conference when there was a lot of discussion about what the security was like involving this New Year's Eve celebration. The police department saying they did not use what's known as these bollards that are basically used for security. They're hard metal. And if you see some of the video, they use these more orange and white kind of caution blockers instead. Talk about what they use in New York for the ball drop. And obviously New York City remembers an incident similar to this back in 2017 when you had a deadly truck incident there as well.
Yeah, let's talk about that truck incident which happened on Halloween of 2017. And a guy rented a truck, went down a pedestrian and bike path, killed 8 people. After that, they put these cement or concrete barriers all up and down that pedestrian path along the West Side Highway for miles and miles. We've seen this across the country as well when it comes to these big events like this on Bourbon Street. So these bollards, these barricades, they're supposed to stop this from happening. But sometimes it doesn't happen because in this case, you heard the police chief say, well, those bollards were not working and the driver went up on the sidewalk, crashing into people, killing multiple folks. So they will have to look at this situation not only in New Orleans, but in many cities across the country. When you have big events, how do you protect them? The one thing New York City does, they also bring in sanitation trucks, DEP trucks, environmental protection trucks, sand trucks, to block off these areas to prevent this sort of thing from happening. But as you mentioned, the big news here, they are looking for other individuals, whether they are friends, family members, or just someone he met online.
Yeah, and Dean, I mean, New York City used to this, a massive operation at NYPD. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of coordination to figure out on the national level what potential involvement there might be with others.
Exactly. I mean, was this something that just targeted that city of New Orleans, or was it something that they were trying to target the Sugar Bowl, which is now postponed for a day? You know, Mardi Gras will be starting soon at the big event in March. You have the Super Bowl in February. Were these improvised explosive devices set out a day or two ago? So that's why they are trying to be very cautious now, because when they say they're looking for other individuals, well, where are those individuals? Are they in Louisiana? Are they in Texas? Are they somewhere in Chicago, Philadelphia? We're waiting for the FBI to tell us. But once again, they don't want to give too much information out as they try to arrest other suspects.
Chief, a lot of the attention on that press conference was focused on football. Sugar Bowl postponed, as Dean mentioned, 24 hours. You've got Mardi Gras coming up. You've got the Super Bowl. Are you surprised that the Sugar Bowl is delayed and delayed only for 24 hours? And talk about what additional security would look like, because assumably security was already going to be very tight.
Right, I'm sure it was. And I think that's a prudent decision on their part. But clearly this press conference, given the political nature of it, was intended to address what is in the world of criminology called the fear of crime, or in this case, the fear of terrorism. They're trying to settle people down and not only give them some assurance that they're doing everything possible. I think the governor has made a real good decision about committing the National Guard to the environment, but also it will give the security people, all of the folks that are working to make the Sugar Bowl safe, some additional time to bring in additional resources, revisit their safety plans, because as we saw in this particular instance, all it takes is one small mistake. In this case, it was assuming that, for some reason, assuming that nobody would drive on the sidewalk, for whatever plan you had put in place to go right down the drain. So I think this is a prudent thing for them to do. And most of the comments that you heard were really about trying to calm people down.
Well, just across the block here at the U.S. Capitol, we have had additional security fencing go up in preparation for the inauguration and also in preparation for the anniversary of January 6th, the counting and certification of the electoral results. Chief, only have about 30 seconds here, but real quick, is this the new reality for law enforcement? Because we had that deadly truck ramming just last month in Germany. We talked about the situation in New York. This is a new challenge, is it not?
I don't know if it's a new challenge, but it should be a wake-up call to not forget the lessons that we should have already learned, because there have been multiple examples of people using vehicles as weapons. Terrorism hasn't gone away. Domestic extremism hasn't gone away. And I think this is a wake-up call.
Good information and a good point. Chief Jim Bierman and our criminal justice reporter, Dean Meminger, thank you both for your time. We will continue to follow the very latest on this developing story out of New Orleans all afternoon and evening on this first day of 2025 here on Spectrum News. Thanks for joining us. We'll continue and go back to your local programming.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation. Spectrum